Danny, how you doing?
Good, can't complain. Just
Oh,
another week. Relaxed. And how about you?
yeah, it was a great week, a great month, man. The holidays were good. The kids got the gifts they wanted, so everybody's happy.
Yeah, that's all that matters. The kids got to be happy, right?
Yeah, right, man. Everybody's
You know,
back in school, so I can get back to normal.
yeah, get some freedom to do your own thing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate you coming on again. Every time I have you on, and we don't do this, I spend like 30 minutes on your content. So I've got to be almost like a connoisseur of the stuff you've thrown out there by now.
Yeah, I know.
My
I'm,
notes are insane. I have so many notes, it's almost confusing.
yeah.
One of the first things I noticed this morning when I was getting ready to do this was
Mm,
the Elon Musk thing with the Twitter. Who would have
yeah,
saw this coming?
yeah,
I had no idea he was going to buy that. I would have never dreamed that there
yeah.
would be so much BS.
I know. I never thought he would. He seems to be. I'm assuming he's like a shill of some sort because it seems almost too good to be true that he's really like telling us all this stuff. There has to be some sort of ulterior motive because I can't see why he would be trying to like mess around with the people who fund all of his businesses. But I mean, I know that Twitter doesn't fund his businesses, but I'm sure that Twitter has a couple of people in there that has their hands in some stuff that he's involved with. So who knows if like he's just kind of gatekeeping a little bit, you know?
I don't know. He's impervious to any real attack, it seems like.
Yeah, I
Like he
know. It's
transcends it or something.
absolutely.
Maybe he is an alien after all.
Yeah, right.
Well, he does have some trouble in California, and I
Yeah.
think his lawyers are trying to push him into Texas, where he'd get
Oh
a
yeah.
far more favorable outcome,
Huh.
at least a
I,
fair trial, at least.
yeah. I didn't hear nothing about. I actually didn't hear about that.
Well, yeah, he's got some legal issues. I don't know if it's about the transfer to Austin with all of his
Mhm.
business, because I don't
Yeah.
know if you realize this, man. I think it was like 10,000 jobs,
Oh really?
and
What
I
when he
think,
fired the Twitter people, right?
well, no. I'm just talking about just his
Oh.
the cars, the solar panels, and the robots,
Oh okay.
the factory stuff, the
Yeah.
real meat and potatoes. That's like
Yeah.
10,000 jobs. And my daughter used to nanny for one of the headhunters. She
Oh
says she
really?
heard the average job, if you take all 10,000, average job from
Yeah.
the guy, the engineer, to the guy sweeping the floor, it was like
Absolutely.
60 or $70,000.
Oh wow.
So that's a starter home for every single employee.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my.
insane. And California let that go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Uh,
I think that's one of the reasons why he's having so much problems.
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Austin gained all that. I'm not gonna lie to you. Can you imagine? Yeah, it's just an economic boom down here right now.
Oh yeah, I bet.
So I would agree with you. If I were him, I would have just kept my mouth quiet and leaked out a few little here and there's to look
He
good
could
on all the conspiracy guys, and I
he
would have
could have
just let business go as usual.
yeah, he could have just done it anonymously, but for some reason he
Yeah.
put his name on everything.
Yeah, like I said, he's impervious. It's like he has like a I don't know Teflon Don, man. I don't know.
Yeah. He's got his sheet metal on.
So
Nothing.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, it won't be long before he's got like 10 robots walking around with him that no one can stop. So
I've seen that recently I believe California is going to be the first the first state to allow robotic police officers. Have you seen anything about that? Because
no, I'm not a huge fan of it.
yeah, they just recently wrote a law to back up that situation to where they weren't allowed to use force in any situation. They weren't allowed to kill anyone unless
Today.
they were like they yeah at all. But they changed it last minute, right when they went into like the courtroom, to where they would be allowed to kill people on their own recognizance, like on a robot's best, like their judgment.
Yeah, it's
And,
crazy. I
and no
feel
one,
more. I feel more comfortable with a drone airplane dropping bombs on its own cognition
oh
than
yeah,
than
absolutely.
police walking around.
I'm sure we have those too.
Ah,
You
that's so
know,
frustrating.
Obama buys that stuff
Yeah, it's
for
insane.
sure.
Yeah, because all it takes is one mistake,
Yep, it's all it
and
takes.
it repeats itself. Once it's in the
Mhm.
system and it's a mistake, it just repeats itself.
Yep.
And we're not turning off a machine that's making a screw incorrectly.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I do want to get back to that because that's a wild topic in and of itself, and I do have some stuff I wanted to talk to you about with the
Yeah, sure.
AI and stuff. But another thing I noticed when I was going through your stuff again was that guy from the early 20s. He was like 7 or 8 feet tall. He was real young. Um, you had a little thing on giants there, and I've always been
Yeah,
intrigued with the giants.
absolutely. I have as well. I forget exactly what that guy's name was. I actually was just looking at that as well. But yeah, he was known to have like a really bad thyroid problem, I
Yeah,
believe. So like he was just grow. I think when he was like 12, he was 6 foot.
yeah, which
so
is nuts. Which is nuts.
so he,
Yeah.
like ever since. And I believe his mother had it as well, but I think she died pretty fairly early on when like right after he was born, I assume. But
But
yeah, they've been finding a lot of well in the early like 1900s they were doing a lot of excavations, especially like burial mounds, like the ones we have around here, like the Snake Mound and all that.
yeah,
And
the
like
Indian
the
ones. Yeah.
Smithsonian basically covered it all up. Like
Yeah,
they were like
why did they? Because we know it's out there. Even the ancient aliens reported on it several times.
they would rather us just be looked at as let people who believe that actually was true to be looked at as like crazy people, even though there's piles of evidence of it. You can look at newspaper clippings from that time. It's all over the place. You really can't hide it. But for some reason, not enough people really question it, or at least no one high enough questions it. And if they do, they probably just get told to be quiet,
Yeah.
because I believe I'm not 100% sure if this. I'm pretty sure this happened, but I believe the Smithsonian was taken to court around that time for suppressing history because they were trying to protect the Darwinian evolution theory. Because with
Smithsonian did a lot of evil shit based on that Darwinian nonsense. There, they were taking like Aborigines and saying
mhm,
these skulls are facts and blowing
mhm,
people. They still to this day they didn't even get rid of the skulls. The
nope,
atrocities they did in Southeast Asia, completely
oh
unnecessary.
yeah, it's crazy, really.
Yeah.
Not to mention, like no one seems to talk about how the Aboriginal people of Australia. I don't even know why we call them that. We should just call them the original. They just had to put that ab on it for whatever reason. But the original people of Australia, I posted something on Facebook recently about it. Is that they're I think that they're about the oldest civilization that has been known to use a writing system. Like they would do like hieroglyphs on like rocks and stuff, but they were just found out to be known that they were there for 60,000 years. They're the most continuous civilization ever that's still going on today for 60,000 years.
That
Yeah.
hasn't had to assimilate by conquest or some sort of thing like that.
Yeah, they weren't affected by any type of conquest somehow.
Well,
Even,
I think
even,
I think it was their geographic location, man.
yeah,
Once
they
that
were,
water came back up, there was no way people can get there.
yeah, they're on like a certain point of Australia that I think now is like considered protected land. But like even when England was using Australia as a prison island, they used to use the island of Australia to put all their prisoners, like Great Britain, like England, all that stuff. And somehow they lasted the test of time and still sitting here in their own regular, like the way that they've been living for all those years, which is
Yeah.
just amazing itself. Because there's a lot of stuff in that area, like I forget there's something petroglyphs. I forget what the name of the area was, but they had these petroglyphs that are like they depict like people from the sky, but they're like extremely like Cro-Magnon man era type like drawings, and they've
Yeah.
just been sitting and like and everyone acts like they don't exist. But people have been actually been poking around up there a lot and been looking at it. And now I know like Graham Hancock was down there recently. I think it was during his one of his the the apocalypse thing he did on Netflix. I think he may have gone there as well.
Okay. Well, a lot of
But
people have gotten there on several occasions because you look back at some of the other ancient civilizations and we realize that this narrative that it took millions of years for humanity to find farming seems to
yeah,
be rather preposterous.
the hunter gatherers. Yeah,
Yeah, we didn't hunter gather for millions of years because
no.
it took millions of years to figure out if you just stay put, it would be better.
Hmm.
Come
Yeah,
on, we're all
yeah.
lazy as shit.
I find that.
Yeah, it's so stupid. The moment one guy was like, man, if I don't leave and I work this real quick, I can stay in my house and not have to leave my wife every day or walk
Yep.
around with a bunch of kids Try not to get eaten by lions every day. Come on.
Yeah, not too recently actually. I think that they found I don't know what kind of animal it was. It might have been like a lion or a panther type deal, but it was like they were almost buried within like a 5 foot of each other. A man and like an animal of that type, and it just almost seems as if they were working in like congruence with each other.
Like a dog.
Yeah, like, but there was also this one painting from 1562 by Carne. No, but I forget the name of the author. But there's a painting where it's an older setting with like I guess hunter gatherer people, but they're walking down a valley with brontosauruses.
I saw that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My Instagram, but I when I saw that I couldn't believe it, and like a lot of like people who are like against the conspiracy like world, they'll say, "Oh no, those are giraffes, or those are like some other weird animal." It's like if it was a giraffe, you could tell that that was a giraffe. Like it's a green, long necked beast. Like that's twice the size of them.
And this
But
is not the first picture. This is they've made pictures of giraffes before.
yeah, and it's just a perfect painting of what you would know is a brontosaurus. You know.
I think Alexander the Great reported that he fought a dragon in a cave, which
Oh
probably
yeah,
was some kind of weird dinosaur that was still like a
yeah.
throwback.
And Saint Michael as well had a story, I believe, of fighting a dragon, or it was either Saint Michael or Saint John. But yeah, dragons are depicted in everything, and I don't know if you ever heard of the theory that dragons are just like a T Rex, like
Yeah,
the
it's just
you
a
know how
dinosaur. Yeah, yeah.
just the dinosaur, because say the wings, you know how like they're hollow. Not a lot of those hollow wing bones fossilize because they're so thin they degrade with time.
Yeah.
So the little arms of a T Rex and what could be like you know how like bat wings are and like they have the little arms connected to it. It could be that exact thing. Just we're not seeing the wings, you know.
Can you imagine?
So
Wouldn't that be a wild scenario that it's true? I mean, the Chinese to this day still call dinosaurs dragons.
yeah, and they have the Chinese calendar. They're the only. You think it's strange that they would have 11 out of 12 months they're using these animals, and only one of them's fake.
Yeah.
Because for January, I believe it's the dragon.
Yeah.
And why would they have all these real animals and then one of them be fake? It almost seems like it would be kind of stupid to even bother with something like that.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but here in Texas, they uncovered in like the mid 80s, like 700 feet of dinosaur tracks and human tracks overlaying
Like,
each other and running over each other and literally fossilizing as man steps on top of theirs and theirs steps on top of man's. And
yeah.
we got video footage of them taking a backhoe and excavator and pulling up the sedimentary rock and
Yeah.
finding this for like a quarter mile straight.
Oh wow.
There's total video footage of it.
Yeah, I think I've seen the video. I didn't look too far into it, but yeah, it's definitely like hard to deny that that's exactly what it is.
Well, my point is, I think we were around when saber-toothed tigers were.
Yeah, it just goes along with the idea that our timeline is so messed up.
It is messed
You like
up.
that you like because there's this guy called Anatoly Fomenko. He's a mathematician from Russia. I don't talk too much about him, not recently, because I've just over the years I've posted so many different things. I kind of lost like my own set of staying in my own like area.
Yeah.
I've kind of broke up to telling all sorts of things. But yeah, he's a mathematician from Russia, and he basically broke down exactly how the timeline was skewed. Like the Dark Ages, they probably never happened at all. And if
Oh,
they
really?
did,
Oh, really?
yeah, they probably because they say that they have like no documentation really from this era. But what if that was just the time where they added on all sorts of time just to make it seem like we're much older than we are, to go along with like I'm sure you've still probably seen the coins that it kind of looks like there's no one. It'll be like a 1638, but there won't be the one, or it'll look like a J or an I.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I've seen
sometimes
that, yeah.
in old civilizations, they used to use that I or J to represent the time of Jesus, or like the time before or after, because Jesus in I believe Hebrew is spelled with an I. I think in some dialects that the J would be presented as an I in some languages.
Yeah.
But yeah, like even ancient Roman coins, like you'll see that it just seems that something is just not right with how the timeline goes.
Well,
And
there's definitely some scenarios that don't make any sense and don't line up. One, when you look at population growth,
yeah.
you can't get millions of years without a lot of graves.
Oh, absolutely. No,
Um,
100%.
So we're definitely missing some graves. So something's there. There's something there. Now I did see something about a mud flood, and I
Yeah.
don't exactly know what the mud flood is. I'm assuming it's a variation of the
Well,
biblical flood.
I I can tell you what happened. A mud flood, uh, the scientific like explanation of a mud flood is the liquefaction of sediment.
Okay.
So, say there's like an earthquake, it would cause the ground to shake, or whatever area it would be like. So the mud would turn into a liquefied version of mud, and it could become like a tidal wave if type deal or whatever if it has enough momentum. But if you look up, there's a thing called, actually just spoke about this on another podcast. It's called the Sierra Madre mud flood, and you can look it up. It's right on YouTube from Path News, like they're like an older news channel where they show you what goes on, and it's a mud flood, and it's like pretty much destroys everything in its path. So
Oh
yeah,
shit.
there's evidence of mud floods from about probably like a little bit earlier than 1800. Like, you know how some of those pictures you'll see, like there's just massive mounds of dirt surrounding buildings, and that's where a lot of the Tartaria mud flood theory comes from, is the pictures of those buildings having 2 or 3 layers of flooring under this dirt and mud, and you can see
Oh
them
man.
excavating. They excavated out of it, and like that's what makes you know how like a lot of there's like windows at the floor level, or on like a hill you'll have like a window. It's like it just I was a stonemason for many years, and that's just not a normal way for someone to build. Like that would have to be built like that, and something happened
Yeah,
to
yeah.
it,
There's an after effect that's considered in that whole scenario. I agree.
around it, instead of rebuilding what was below it. Because now you could see, and pretty much anywhere, there's subfloors that go down 10, 15 floors just in New York alone.
Yeah, I was gonna
There's
say
sub
the older the city, the crazier you can go down.
like
Yeah.
New York has subways that are under the subways, and California has subways that are under like their situations as well, along with Tokyo and everything. Like pretty much any city has layers of civilization below it, no matter if it's documented or not. Whether people want to admit it or not, you go down far enough, you're going to find evidence of another civilization somewhere.
Yeah. So there's definitely a skewed version of civilization and time itself.
For sure.
It's just, I think what happens is scientists like certainty. And
Mm-hmm.
when things are going a certain way, to turn so far 90 degrees isn't worth it to them, especially when it's just a few anomalies.
Yeah,
So to just
I know.
keep everything down the beaten path, they
Mm-hmm.
ruin the opportunity for us to expand our knowledge a little bit by not
Oh,
entertaining
yeah,
it at all. And I think it's a mistake. There could
absolutely.
be something so profoundly unique that's
Yeah,
missing that we don't know about that could change so much.
they're so set in the what they've been trying to teach and what they've been learning on themselves that they refuse to believe that there could be any other answer than what they already know. Which, like as you said, it just blocks all possible knowledge from being learned about what could have been, instead of what we think is, which almost everybody says that it's kind of unbelievable what they say, and like how the timeline goes, and like the progress of technology and everything.
Yeah. Well, no,
It's
it's a cardinal sin because
oh
what if those Baghdad batteries would bring us and transcend us 3 generations faster by
oh
just
yeah.
entertaining them? You know, we
In
just
fact,
don't know.
speaking of the Baghdad batteries, there's a hieroglyph system. I believe it's in the pyramid of Giza, the big one, where it shows a giant light bulb, and it has about 3 rows of Baghdad batteries on each side of it.
Okay.
So it's literally showing you that they had electricity, and they knew exactly what they were doing. That and it looked exactly like a regular light bulb, just extremely huge, with the wiring and everything.
Yeah.
And
I don't think there's any hieroglyphics on the actual large pyramid because they still are questioning who's actually supposed to be buried in there.
no, yeah, they
So
have no.
I think those hieroglyphs you're talking about, I think they're down at a
Oh, I'm sorry.
different city. I think they're in a different city there where they used to do their yearly
It might have
sacrifice.
been. Yeah, it might have been the Temple of Isis. I
Yeah,
apologize.
something like that. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about. I understand exactly what you're saying. But I want to get everybody clear on this that the pyramids do not have any real signature on them, and that's why
Yeah.
there's still debates to this day.
Yes, my apologies, everyone. That was a fluke on my end.
I don't get a whole lot of comments on YouTube, but I do get comments otherwhere, and I don't want to argue with anybody over.
No, Yeah, that was my mistake, everybody.
Nah, Danny, you're good because I'll be honest with you, you're well versed in many, many different genres of conversation. So
Yeah,
to be just as prolific as you are with what you know is pretty cool.
yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Oh, of course, because I personally like all these topics. I will go from Bigfoot to the flat Earth to the pyramids to the Great Wall of China. I have no problem spanning all
Yeah,
those
yeah.
ideas, but
Have
I
you ever
can only scratch the
have you ever
surface on
taken
them.
a good look at the Great Wall of China?
No, and
You'll
actually, I wanted to talk to you about that, man. So,
yeah.
what is your thoughts on the Great Wall there? Is it really facing the other direction? Is it really to keep the
Yeah,
Chinese out?
there's these certain parts of the walls that are only built like this so they could block out and have archers inside, because like the little window, there's like a little window on some of them where they could have archers and make it extremely impossible for someone to climb over. And all the hill sides of the, because like on each side there's like a flat side and then there's the hill, all the hilly sides that would make it harder for someone to climb over are on the Chinese side, and what would be the Mongolian side would have the more easy access to be able to defend that other side of the wall, because it's now coming out that Genghis Khan was actually a Tartar. Like he was a Tartarian. And I actually just found this document that I know no one has ever seen before. Like I really just found this maybe a week or two ago, of his genealogy, a document of his genealogy from like 1300s, 1400s, which has everyone who was his descendants before and after him. So
Wow.
there's like a whole bunch of different people on this list as well. But yeah, I believe that that wall is actually the Great Wall of Tartaria, protecting the what would be the Mongolian side, they call it. But it was actually like Mongol Tartar and Chinese Tartar. These were areas, the areas of Tartaria that were in like those areas. Like the Chinese people lived in Chinese Tartary, Mongolian Tartary, etc. But Tartaria actually used to be called Scythia at one point.
Okay,
So
I've seen that in a map before. I've seen that.
yes, but
That would
yeah,
go back all the way to the Roman maps.
yes, but I believe that the Great Wall is actually a Tartarian
So
structure.
that would actually make the Chinese the invading force.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, that's
But it would,
wild, man. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
because
Um. Yeah. Go ahead.
no, yeah, because everybody I think was scared. Even if you just called them the Mongols, if you think about the power that they represented, even now, how powerful they talk about how they were, or when they're actually talking about the Tartarians, is that like people were terrified of them because they were such good warriors and they were ruthless. And Genghis Khan himself, like I think he's got 90% of like the population over there is has a piece of his DNA in them.
Yeah, yeah. There's a percentage. They said they can actually trace back a percentage.
It's
Do you know how
absolutely
much
insane.
work that is? Do you know how much work he had to do that? That's
That guy was
daily.
down.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
was
yeah.
he
That's
was enjoying,
insane. Yeah, that's insane.
and they supposedly just found his burial site.
Really?
I believe it was under a river in China, or like what would now be China, and everything got destroyed because of the water. But they had found a burial site with him and about maybe 16 or 17 women, which obviously would be his concubines and his wives.
Yeah.
But yeah, they found him, and I believe that they did a DNA test on it, and it falls into the line of his life. So it could absolutely be him. It was like a large, important Mongol leader, and
Well,
like he
they
was.
got some wild burials over there in Asia.
But yeah, they found all sorts of like coins and everything, and like the wives and all sorts of stuff. But
Okay.
there was markings on the inside of it that represented it could be him. But then they backed it up with the DNA, so they know it was him now.
Okay.
So they found his burial site.
So that'll be a pretty prolific
Yeah,
paperwork once they're done, man. When they're done with all the analysis, it'll be a pretty cool thing to see on National Geographics or something.
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
But
because I'll be honest with you, Asia's got wild stuff, man. Have you seen those keyhole burial bounds they do in I think it was Japan?
I don't think I have actually.
Oh man, that's definitely another one you should jump on when you get a chance, man. That's some
Oh
wild stuff too. They've got
yeah.
these mounds that look literally like a keyhole,
Mm.
and it's dug out where it's got a river around it or a lake around
Oh
it.
yeah. Cool. A lot of these sites are built with water around it because water is an energy creator, and like sometimes, and it'll like they used it as like a, let's just say they used like electricity. It was like a pond where they could use to like I forget exactly what the word is, but they would use it for the motion of the energy.
Oh yeah,
Or
the vibration of it moving. Yeah.
yeah, I forget exactly how it goes, but it was used to like transport that energy around the area. But like a lot of old,
There's an argument for that with the pyramids. They were saying
yeah.
that Nile was closer, and
Oh yeah.
one of the reasons why they were able to get those blocks over there was they were literally floating them over at a
Mhm.
far closer clip than people realize.
Yeah, they were much, much closer at that time. And if you look at, I don't want to steal anybody's work, but I believe it was Graham Hancock and those guys, but they've been going to the Sphinx and the pyramids for quite some time now, and it's almost too obvious that the Sphinx has water damage.
Oh yeah,
Thousands,
yeah. There's anybody that
thousands,
says otherwise is an
yeah,
idiot.
thousands of years of water damage, whether it be rain or not. But you can see on what would have been the causeway, you could see that there was running water would have been going down from it for like at least a great period of time that you could see that so like I don't know why they don't admit that there was an
Because it doesn't
excess.
fit. It doesn't fit with the timeline.
Yeah, exactly.
They just
It's
throw it
just
away. They just throw it away.
they just don't want people to know that things were a little bit cooler than than they want them
Yeah,
to.
yeah. Especially if like we had like a strong civilization, 30%, 40, 50% longer than we realize. That
Yeah.
people were able to figure out that they can grow corn and just stay in one spot way before we say they could.
Yep.
Samaria is great and it's a great idea, but
Mm-hmm.
it seems very preposterous to go so long with this noggin and not come up
Yep.
with that conclusion real
Absolutely.
quick. Yeah.
So,
Because every generation, I don't care who you are and how lazy you are, you're like, man, I could do this better than my dad can do it.
oh, for sure. Everybody's like that.
All it takes is one smart dude or actually one lazy dude to say, I'm not going to do it like my dad. I'm
Yeah.
going to make this easier.
Well, that's how we innovate, isn't it?
Yeah.
We build off the last man, but the problem with the world is now that we're not allowed to build off the last man
Mm.
anymore. It's what the last man said, and that's it. Like, there's nothing that could be really put beyond that point. Like the Atlantis argument. Like no like scholar or academic scholar even wants to touch it anymore because they believe it's just a story and this and that. But there's a lot of evidence to say that it could have been the Richat structure, which is in Africa, or it could have been smack dab in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Like they find all sorts of ruins at the bottom of the ocean all the time.
Everywhere.
Const-
Yeah.
yeah, almost everywhere they find it. It's just unbelievable the fact that the public itself is just not pushing a little bit harder because they just believe everything that they're told. And like anytime some people like us try to explain, like maybe there's probably a better option, there's probably more that we need to know about this, but they just accept what they were told throughout school and whatnot because it gets so burned and indoctrinated into your mind that anyone tries to show you some sort of new information, they just think you're like an idiot or you're crazy or a conspiracy theorist, like everybody loves to.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
And they just cut you right off at the knees as soon as they say that. And then they ask you questions about Bigfoot immediately.
yeah, which the conspiracy, like the name being called a conspiracy theorist, only came about during the JFK assassination, and just
Really?
not even ago, it was on the news that the files for that are being suppressed simply because the CIA is so directly involved with it, and Bush Senior is so directly involved with it. He was even at the shooting, right outside the Texas Depository when it happened, with a couple of his little buddies. But they directly try to like just suppress this information because they know that the public's going to freak out, and they did the same thing with COVID as well.
So I got a
Um,
question. What would be your theory on the motive? Is it about the gold standard? I hear all kinds of different things
uh,
with communists and
well, he did this one speech where he blatantly said, "I will not submit to secret societies," which he was directly talking about the Freemasons, I believe. I had posted that, but I think it had a lot to do with that he was like a true American, like he like patriot, and he like loved America, and he didn't want to keep going down this road that he knew we were on, and he was going against like with the Bay of Pigs.
yeah.
That situation was entirely forced. He didn't want that. Like the presidents at the time, whether it was him or Nixon, I forget who it was, but
I think it was JFK at the time. Yeah.
yeah, like he did not want that to happen in any way, shape, or form. And they went behind his back, the CIA, and started it. Like they created that one incident that caused it all to open up. And I believe that
We see that in
cash
the Middle East. We see that in the Middle East 10 years ago.
exactly
Yeah.
everything set up because once they get the American public to be scared enough or to be angry enough about something, it'll just they have no block. There's no blockage. They're allowed to do whatever they want as long as the American public's right behind them.
They start
But
printing money like crazy once they get that permission too.
JFK was he was not going to fit in their narrative,
Mm,
so they had to remove him no matter which way it was going to happen.
that's wild.
And my personal belief is that he got shot from the sewer.
You
A
think
lot of
so?
people
Okay, okay.
there's actually a documentary out, not trying to say like I base everything off that one documentary, but it's the only area where he could have possibly gotten shot and his head would have gotten knocked back and to the right or to the left. Like say because there was this
Because if it was coming down, you would have went forward instead of back.
if you
Yeah.
watch the Zapper video, which is heavily doctored, but there's certain sections of it where you see a policeman drop his motorcycle and he looks off to the left to see the car. But when he lifts it back up, most people don't realize that there's a sewer right there, a sewer. And there's these two boys. One of the boys got like scared and he didn't do it. But the one, he took the shot, he killed him, and he went to work, pale white, covered in mud. And when he got to work, everyone in his job, they kind of called the cops and they were like, because they heard about what happened and they called and he was all scared and covered in mud and everything that they went and actually questioned this boy, but like they let him be because some of those cops were on like the payroll of that situation. And actually, funny thing, Woody Harrelson's father was the grassy knoll shooter. Yeah, like I believe it's Edward Harrelson was his name, and he was actually admitted to being one of the guy at least behind the fence or from the grassy knoll who took one of the shots. Like 7 guys. I think there was 16 shots taken, and 7 people were taking those shots, and all of them missed except for that one kid because they stopped the car. Like when the policeman stopped and dropped the mic, the
Yeah.
car had stopped a second, which they cut out of the video itself. But you'll see it in certain points of the video that it did actually stop, and you can see that the policeman blocks the view of the sewer, and like the car stops. His head goes forward, and then he gets blown back by a shot. So I don't see how any other possible angle it could have came from, but below and to the right, right in front of him.
Yeah, we're never gonna truly know exactly what happened. Too many
Yeah.
people died since then.
For sure.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone that can even speak on it.
Which makes you wonder when you hear these stories about these Roman emperors getting stabbed by the Senate or something like that. I wonder exactly how it went down. It was probably slightly different than the way history plays it out.
It was always their immediate guards, supposedly, that stabbed these guys because they're the easiest ones to pay off because they know just they'll be protecting another Caesar in like 5 seconds anyway, as soon as that guy. But I believe that the Senate used to pay off the centurions. I believe that was the guards of the
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like
like
the
the Secret Service of the day for them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe that they were the ones being paid off killing them because it didn't happen once, it didn't happen twice. There was a lot of assassinations on Caesars of Rome for quite some time.
Another thing I don't see you talking about that's kind of cool, and I'm wondering why, is South America. There's so
Uh,
much stuff down there that I don't see you really touch on too much. You seem
I
to
try.
stay on the Eurasia.
First, I've actually never been asked that before, but I see a lot of the South American stuff. A lot of people try to mix it in with alien stuff, and I try to keep away from the alien stuff.
Okay, that's why. Because I was going to say it's just as intriguing. I'm not a
Oh,
huge fan of the alien thing, but I'm still intrigued by these gigantic doors, these
oh, for sure.
huge blocks, and I don't know if you know this, but they show very similar patterns from Egyptian
Oh,
quality work on stone and the South American stuff. It almost looks like the same damn people.
oh yeah, actually, that's pretty much a lot where the Tartarian theory comes from as well. Is the fact that all of these buildings across the world have the same type of construction, and they use the same type of like mortar, I guess, to keep and like even
Or
some of the
sometimes no mortar at all. Yeah, which is preposterous. If you think it's
yeah.
lasting thousands of years.
Yeah, but there's also this one theory called one big rock, where you know how like they shape out these stones. It looks like you can't stick a piece of paper through it. How they always
Yeah,
say that.
yeah, yeah. That's a profound thing to do.
What if they just etched out the outside of those some of those stones and just made it seem like those were
Yeah,
actual
yeah, and
stones?
that's what I would do because you always do. Yeah, yeah, because you're looking for the facade at the end. You're not looking
Yep.
for the whole thing to be in precise. But we know that the pyramids, those
Oh yeah,
blocks, they popped a couple blocks out. Those
yeah.
things are perfectly shaped,
Hmm.
all four sides or six sides.
My
So,
personal belief is that they used acoustic levitation for that.
well, okay. Well, here's the deal. They've come to some conclusions that there are ways of doing this. For instance, the monoliths, those big,
Yeah.
long, the ones that point up and they're like pointy at the top. What are
Hmm.
those called? They're not
What,
called.
like a capstone? The
Well, anyways, they erect these really tall, long blocks of stone with the pyramid
yeah,
on top, and I can't think of what it's called. A
like
monolith. It's But the point was, if you rough hew those things out,
yeah.
make some stone wheels,
Hmm.
make square cuts in the hole, and just stick the monolith into the hole, you turn
Yeah.
the whole damn thing into a gigantic axle.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's way easier to move now.
For sure it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so much easier. And then you pop the wheels off, you put it in place, and you lift it up in the air. Now there was concern that you would break it on lifting it up or anything, but the point
Hmm.
was that you can take a normal man with some
Hmm.
normal tools, and there's still creative ways to get that block moved around without rolling it on wooden blocks. It,
Hmm.
it, it was a real simple solution, and they found it in France. Some old book that they think escaped the fire of Alexander.
Hmm.
It was one of
Go
those
ahead.
books that just made it.
Yeah.
So,
I would certainly love to see what was in that library.
oh yeah, can
Person.
you imagine? Oh yeah, it was probably explaining all the things we're missing.
And it's probably all sitting. Anything that survived is probably all sitting in
The
the Vatican.
Vatican. We
Yeah.
both went there. We went there at the same time. That's great.
Yeah. Probably all
Uh,
sitting.
can you imagine what's in the Vatican? I bet you there's stuff from Alexander. If they found some scripts
Oh.
in France, there's got to be other ones. Not
Hmm.
everything burnt.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No doubt. No doubt about it. There's actually there's this one temple in Ethiopia. This really has nothing to do with what we were just talking about, but it just came to mind. There's this temple in Ethiopia where it's on the top of a giant rock face. It's just like a skinny, giant, tall rock face, and they actually found similar to the Dead Sea Scrolls, like a Bible-esque type thing. But if you look on the walls of this, like it's not easy to get to, but like somehow like pregnant women will go to the top of this thing and you have to climb. Like there's no ladders or anything like that. You have to climb. They go to the top of this to be blessed by the monks that live up there. And it is not habitable, really. It's maybe like one or two people, but on the walls of the like cathedral, if you could say, there's pictures of lizard-esque type people in there. And I don't know why I brought it up, but I just felt like just try.
Well, hold on. We were talking about tall people earlier, and I
Yeah.
think just like dogs all come from like a wolf-like dog or an African dog or whatever like that.
Mhm.
I think you get variations of humans.
Yeah.
It's got to be. There's got to be a way to manipulate the genes a little bit and just.
Have you ever seen some old maps? They'll have like a depiction of like 12 different types of humanoids. And there's this one called the Blemie. I don't know if you ever heard of the
Are
Blemie,
you
but
talking
they
about
would
the one with the no neck?
the face is on like their chest.
Yeah.
And they're always found in like in like the middle ranges of like Africa and whatnot. But like yeah, they were supposedly had no head. And there was a video recently that came out of like humanoid type beings on the outsides of like islands of like Thailand that could have been mistaken for that type of person. It's like a very short like monkey type, but it wasn't like it looked more like a humanoid, and their heads are kind of like bent down. They have like no neck, but I'll show you the video. But it looks almost as if that's what it could have been depicted as.
Very
Like
easily
these,
could be. Who knows? Or maybe the neck just genetically moves in a different position where you're just stuck. I mean,
or
it's
they,
not impossible.
yeah. What a lot of people don't know about Admiral Byrd is that he's a 33rd degree Mason. He had his own order, which was the Order of the Penguin, which was based in Antarctica at McMurdo, and he was an avid he was a novelist. He'd like to draw like write stories in his time because he was always on a ship. So if you're on a ship for months at a time, you're gonna find something, especially
Yeah,
when
you got to kill time. Yeah, there's
there's no
there's no cell
television.
phone, man. There's no cell
Exactly,
phone.
exactly. So you have to pass time somehow. And I mean, his son is the one who made it public. So who really knows exactly how true it could be. I mean, it's an amazing story. Don't get me wrong, but you have to take everything with a grain of salt, you know.
So,
But
is
I
it
mean,
true that they won't let you go as far as you want in Antarctica freely?
the Antarctic Treaty will not allow civilians past the 60-degree mark of latitude.
Why though?
But a lot of people say, well, it's just they say it's for scientific reasons. They don't want to pollute the area or anything like that. Like no country in it. I think there's 150 countries that are involved in that now. But um, it's they say it's for scientific research only. But you can go to Antarctica. Like there are cruises that take you there. A lot of people think, oh, you're a flat earther, when I have to completely tell them that I'm not in the first place. But is certain areas you can go to, but it's always the same area. And the funny thing, let's flip over to the North Pole. The North Pole, actual pole that they let you go visit, isn't the actual place where the North Pole is. It's just for like photo ops and stuff like that. So it's not even where they're really telling you. If the North Pole, where they were showing you, it would be right where, on the maps where they say Hyperborea. Hyperborea would be the North Pole, and Rupus Nigra, the black rock, the black magnetic rock. But Antarctica, yeah, you if you're a civilian on a boat, you're not going.
See,
Like,
I don't understand. Okay, you could go to a certain part in Antarctica, and
yeah, guided.
you can contaminate that area,
Yeah, you
but
can
you
go on the
can't
shores.
contaminate. But you can't contaminate any other area.
Yeah, there's maybe I think there's don't quote me exactly on this, but I think there's 3 areas you can go to that you're allowed to visit and look through. But yeah, for the most part, Antarctica is off of limits completely. Well, not completely, but pretty much like
Yeah,
90% of it you cannot
yeah, it's
see.
so weird. It's so weird.
Yeah,
Because I'll be honest with you, I don't care what country you are.
yeah.
I don't see how me driving a snowmobile until I die bothers you.
It's anyone's concern.
Yeah,
Yeah,
why you really are worried about me that much? You're
yeah,
concerned of my well being that much?
yeah.
That sounds preposterous to me.
Absolutely, I
They
agree.
have no problem with me dying in the mountains. And
Yeah, or fighting for the country or something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
So I don't know. That seems kind of weird.
It's crazy. Absolutely. That's
So
the number one thing people always tend to bring up. They're like, "Oh, you can go on a cruise here or there." I was like, "Yeah, you're seeing like a small section. It's like you're going to a movie theater. Yeah, you can see that movie, but you're not gonna be able to see all of them. You know what I'm trying to say?"
yeah.
Yeah.
So the one that everybody keeps talking about there that doesn't make any sense to me, that lost country. What was it called again?
They could what
T-
Terra Incognita,
not a
Terra Incognita,
no
or not Frizzland. What the Knots Confundum maps?
Tardarian or something
Oh,
like that.
Tartaria. Well,
Tartaria.
Tartaria wasn't a lost continent. It's where China is. It would be the entire continent of China, and the Mongolians. They weren't Mongolians. They were actually Tartarians. And the funny thing about Tartaria is the further back you go on maps, you'll see further and further they go up towards the North Pole where Hyperborea is. And there's one map that I posted by Gerard de Jode from 1593, where you can see Tartaria is right off one of the 4 rivers of, how like the 4 river, they say the 4 rivers come out of like Eden
Yeah.
and they lead down. Well, those 4 rivers, one of them, Tartaria, is right off the edge. And the funny thing about Tartaria is that Genghis Khan is a Tartarian. He's the most famous Tartarian there is. And Mongolia was just a section of Tartary. Yeah. And they say that's where, like, Tartarus in like hell, how they talk about Tartarus and hell. It's like, I think that's the way you would get to that. It was through that section of the world. There's a lot of maps that show like entrances to like certain areas, this or that, the other thing. But Tartary, that's a deep one. You can get pretty far with that because even in
Yeah.
America, if you really think about it, everything looks all the architecture from like the World's Fairs, they all look Romanesque and like maybe even Gothic in some places, but they're all over the world. Rome wasn't just going to fucking countries that no one's ever been to at that time, building stuff if there was nothing there. Especially Chicago, like the Chicago and the San Francisco ones, they're like remarkable. They were not built for some short period of time because if they were, half those buildings wouldn't still be standing today. Like the science and administration buildings are still standing in Chicago, and like a whole bunch of other things. But I think that all of that architecture that's so unmistakably the same across the globe is from one group, whether it be the Moors or the Tartarians.
All right, why the Moors?
Because they had the same similar type of style of construction as well, and a lot of their history is suppressed. I don't know
Okay.
everything.
Well, I know they went up to Spain there. They got up to Spain and they actually had to fight the French, and the French fought them off, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's Charlemagne, I think, or his son. Yeah.
Charlemagne. Yeah, there's just so much to weed through on everything with it.
Yeah,
But
I'm intrigued.
there's a
Go ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't know anything about Hyperborea.
Yeah,
I know
it,
nothing
it's
about it.
it's basically the land right because they say it's like kind of a canopy, and at the top would be Eden, and Hyperborea would be that right around it. Eden's in the center at Rupus Nigra, to the black rock, the magnetic rock, which they say is what controls the magnetism of the Earth, not gravity. Like magnetism would be the gravity in that situation,
Okay.
because any anti gravity vehicle or is actually what was I just saying? Isn't anti gravity? It goes by the magnitude.
Okay.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. It's a magnet. It's a
yeah,
magnet instead of a gravity, anti-gravity.
yeah, like birds and all that,
Yeah.
they use the magnetic fields to know when they have to fly south. Like it's not like they just know, oh, it's going to get cold tomorrow. No, it's the magnetism that tells animals to
So
go a
how
certain.
does that magnetism change? Because I've heard stories that they think there's spots in their beak that have like a little bit of metal in the beak or whatever, and they can do their navigation with the
I'm
magnetic
not
field.
exactly sure what organ or anything it would be, but they definitely do have some sort of sensory
Yeah. Oh,
ability to
obviously, yeah.
know.
There's no way you're
Yeah,
getting. Even the butterflies get to these crazy, outlandish places.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Like how could they possibly know how to get
yeah,
there?
it's
It's just
preposterous.
there.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no way you learn that. That is not
yeah,
a that's not a learned trait. That is built in.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Um, that in and of itself is kind of intriguing, uh, because evolution seems to have all kinds of like holes in it
Oh
itself.
yeah, absolutely. Everyone in the academic, philosophical, archaeological world backs that up to no end because that would mean their whole entire job in life was a lie. So why wouldn't they go along with it? And I know that people say like, "Oh, why would so many people lie?" And I don't think it's like in that situation. I think it's compartmentalized. They believe everything because they base it off of like carbon dating, and carbon dating is the most unreliable dating source that there is,
Yeah.
because it could be 100,000 years, it could be 10,000, it could be 100. It doesn't. You can't, and there are certain things you can't carbon date. But
I think
yeah,
because of all the anomalies and all that stuff, I think that's why Ancient Aliens does so well.
yeah, I
Because
actually can't. I can't stand the show. I
oh, no, no,
really,
no, I don't like the premise because it always goes
yeah.
back to human beings can't
It used
stack
to be great
rocks. Well,
when I
it's just
first.
I'm really frustrated. I don't think that we have a problem stacking rocks, no matter
Yeah,
how
no,
big they get. I
yeah,
don't see the problem there, and they
yeah,
they
no,
constantly come to this conclusion that we just can't stack them.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But there's also the other weird way that goes. It's not aliens. You ever heard the Temple of Solomon and Solomon, that guy?
Okay, yeah, yeah.
There's a book called the Lesser Keys and the Keys of Solomon, and the way he explains how he made those temples, because the Temple of Solomon was magnificent back then, and the way he explained it is that he would take control of demons by using the keys, because there's certain ways, like certain keys, like
Kind of like the rings, like the
yeah,
Lord of the
like the
Rings. Yeah,
pentagrams on
yeah,
the ground.
yeah,
Like people draw the pentagram. You see it in movies all the time, the fucking salt lines and shit.
yeah.
Like you can summon them, and he would be able to use them to build the buildings and use magic to build those buildings.
Wow.
Aleister Crowley was majorly in belief of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never heard. Well, maybe it's something vague.
There's so
Uh,
much to go through that it's hard to remember everything, you know?
well, I was going to get more analytical, and I was going to say that they found an old manuscript in France that they think got salvaged somehow from the fire in Alexander,
Oh yeah.
and literally it showed them taking what looked like a monolith, like one of those ones that they stood up in Egypt,
Yeah, yeah.
with the
Hmm.
point on top there. I can't remember
It,
what that monolith is called. It's called
um Fuck.
Doesn't matter.
I know
The
what you're
word.
talking
Yeah,
about.
the
The
name
Washington
of
Monument.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Obelisk. It's an obelisk.
obelisk. Okay, they were
Yeah, yeah.
taking an obelisk-like object that was like hundreds of millions of pounds, and
Yep.
they were building these gigantic rock circles. They would
Mm,
carve a square hole out and stick the obelisk in, and they would just turn this gigantic rock they couldn't move into an axle,
yeah.
and then they just move it, and they remove the two wheels,
Yeah.
and then you just have it anywhere you want it.
Yep.
And my point was, the mind could solve so many problems if given an
Oh yeah.
opportunity. There's an old
Hmm.
guy on TikTok right now
Hmm.
that moves with one hand like 2 million pound rocks. He's got
Yeah.
this
That's like,
weird arched
yeah.
mechanism he has, and it just rolls right over the arches.
Yeah. That's like Edward Leedskalkin from the Coral Castle. I'm sure
Okay,
you've
yeah,
heard of
that's another guy.
Coral.
Yeah, 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 the old
Yeah.
guy. He was this
Yeah.
scrawny, like 150 pound
He,
foreigner
there,
that just
yeah, there
came to
was,
Florida, like from Bosnia or something.
and he picked that land. That wasn't just random. He said it was on a ley line. I'm sure you heard of ley lines. Like it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
on a
yeah,
dragon.
yeah.
That area is on a dragon ley line. And there was eyewitnesses that would say, like the neighbors, that would say that they saw him standing, and he was just like directing stones. The stones were floating in the air,
No
and he
shit.
was directing them. But there was always this mechanism he had. It looked like a tripod
Yeah,
with a
well, and
black
they said
box.
there was a
With the
box,
black
and the
box.
box
The black.
disappeared.
I think that was anti-gravity technology.
Or one of those keys you're talking about.
Yeah.
Who
Well,
knows,
I mean,
man?
who knows? It's possible. It's
Yeah,
possible. You could put a circle on the 3 points of a triangle, so you never know. You never know.
you never know, man. Well, it is. It's intriguing because the observable world is fascinating.
Oh yeah, I love it.
But
Whichever could be
but we
true,
know
I
there's
love it.
so much. But we know there's so much more, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Psychology is a wild machine, and
Yeah.
human
I went to.
beings.
That's what I went to school for, philosophy and psychology.
No shit. Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I dabbled a little bit in that stuff. But
So,
continue.
yeah, yeah. What do you think about Jordan Peterson with psychology and stuff?
I think Jordan Peterson's he's pretty great. I mean, I like look too far into what he's doing and whatnot. I
But
kind
it's
of
just
stick
the
to the field.
psychology, because if you did a little bit of that, it's
Yeah. I mean, I think he's opening minds and whatnot. I mean, I don't know too much about the guy. I've only ever seen what he really puts on the internet
okay.
because haven't really followed him too much. He's only gotten on my radar ever so recently. And I don't want to speak on something that I'm not
Okay.
perfect with.
Yeah, no, I
You
understand. I understand. But yeah, the psychology of stuff and the way the world maneuvers around us in such different
know?
ways, just depending on our attitudes sometimes.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
so there's so much more to the
They have
observable world.
they've recently found out that emotions they find that emotions, like the way you handle things, is in your DNA. Like not like an academic study found this out, that emotions and your DNA have a lot to do with each other.
And you can change it. You just
Yeah,
like
you can.
when you work
It's
out,
like,
you can change your
yep.
muscles.
DNA is basically a computer sequence of, I forget what the exact word is. Like it's called an algorithm or binary code.
Yeah.
It's basically that, and you can edit it. It's been proven that you can, because
Because
when
people have
say you
done
want
it.
to,
Yeah.
like super rich people, if they want their kid to have blue eyes, you can have a kid with blue eyes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Can they do that right
Yeah,
now?
you can do crazy shit like that.
Well, isn't
Like
there
if
like unforeseen problems? Because I heard a story that they were able to
we're
stop the.
also we're also missing parts of our DNA as well. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we got to touch on that one because that's pretty cool. I heard that they were able to get the cotton plant to
Mhm.
be impervious to the boll weevil.
Yes, I know exactly. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But the fucking cotton falls out before it's fully developed. So
Hmm.
they fix one problem and cause a whole nother one that's even
Yeah,
worse. Now,
yeah.
I would be a little concerned. You get blue eyes and you get like a thumb coming out of your forehead. I'd rather
Exactly.
have brown eyes.
Just be me. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I don't know. I mean, we know GMOs have consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the vaccination absolutely goes into one of those problems, because
Yeah. See.
it's kind of on the same field,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, our DNA, there's one sequence in our DNA that is not, they can't pair it to any human being or type of human being that's ever lived. There's like pieces of our DNA that are completely unexplainable, that no one has any idea where it started, where it came from. like they call it alien, but I don't mean like from the sky, but like an alien strain.
Okay. Like
Yeah.
as if
There's something missing.
we blended with like
Yeah.
Neanderthal or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, we could say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Or who knows? Or maybe the flood's
Exactly.
maybe the flood's true and there was all kinds of different diversifications that all lost
Oh
in
yeah.
translation.
Have you
Because
ever heard of the Blemmies?
no.
It's Blemmies, I believe, and they had faces on their chests.
Oh,
There was
I saw pictures.
no
Okay.
head, no head, just
Yeah.
a face on their chest. And they try to say like, oh, those people were just short. That's how they explain it. It's like I don't know if somebody who's drawn this detail of a map is gonna put a face on someone's chest with no head for no reason.
Yeah, right. And
But
they got a river within 15. Yeah, yeah. They're like so precise on all this effort. Yeah.
yeah, it's
And
just not gonna
they're
happen
going to
that
go
way.
preposterous for no reason.
Yeah. Yep.
I do know that the Cyclops thing was a real thing. That
Yeah.
was actually a problem that did
Mhm.
occur once in a while.
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen a skeleton or two, but I know what you're talking about. I've read something similar to what you're
And
speaking of.
people with scales.
Yep.
So
Oh
there's
yeah.
all kinds of
Just like in
anomalies.
did you ever watch Game of Thrones?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
The daughter of Stannis Baratheon had grayscale, like
yeah,
something like that.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
they throw little things in there.
Yeah, I know. It's wild.
Yeah.
That was a great show.
Even with the Game of Thrones, the ice wall goes a lot with Antarctica as well because they had their protective wall was ice and it protected them from a realm that we couldn't fight protect ourselves from.
Okay, I got a question for you. If you liked Game of Thrones, what do you think, man? How many times do you think they did that? How many times did that happen? Because the wall was there because they did it before, and we watched them
Yeah.
do it once, and the
Mhm.
wall was already there because they did it twice. What if they
Yep.
did that like 7 different times?
I'm sure it's possible.
Was there that Adam at the tree that got all jacked up? Was
Well,
those little fairy people?
I
Did
think
all
that
that happen? Like,
the children of the forest.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's
How many
because
times did that happen?
I'm sure it's just like how everything goes with us. Everything's repetition.
Yeah,
It's
it's
everything's
reciprocal.
everything
Yeah.
is cyclical.
Yeah.
Like that's my thoughts on climate. Like has no one ever noticed that our planet or whatever you want to call it has always gone through these hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold.
Yeah,
It's
there
not
was no
something.
factories in the last ice age to
Yeah.
melt all
So
this.
how come? What happened then? It's not. We are definitely making an effect,
I
but
think it
it's
might be
not.
minimal. I think it might be minimal.
It's
I'd be more
not
worried about messing
anything.
up the ocean than I would
Exactly.
the weather.
It's nothing compared to what is just naturally happening.
Yeah.
We may be. It's like a footprint, like a baby footprint, compared to like a fucking elephant footprint. You know
Oh
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. And wasn't there like a volcano that jacked up the whole world so bad that they had a
Yeah.
mini ice age
Yeah.
where yeah, it affected all kinds of
Yeah.
ores. I think it
I know exactly. Yeah, I know what you're
yeah,
talking about. I forget what it was called,
but it
but
was huge. It was in Asia and
yeah.
it just affected the whole world for like 20
Mhm.
years.
Yeah.
We've been doing what we're doing for 100, and we haven't even done anything close to what that volcano did in one day.
Yeah, it's like the like it goes along with the upper Dryas. I mean, or the lower Dryas. Is that what it is? I forget
I
what it
don't
is.
know. I've never
The
heard of
lower
it.
Dryas or upper Dryas impact. They say that a massive comet hit, and that's what caused the last major ice age, destroying what would be Atlantis and all that stuff. That's why like the Sphinx would be underwater and all that stuff,
Yeah, yeah, which is pretty cool stuff.
which coincides with Plato's description of Atlantis, the 9,000 years that his uncle told him.
Yeah.
It like literally, this is something from Grant Hancock. I don't want to say that I thought of this myself, but he had that series, Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix, and he talks about it that it coincides perfectly with the date of what Plato's grandfather had told him the time, like 9,000 years ago. It was smack dab 9,000 years ago. This event,
Yeah.
the Upper Dryas impact event.
And I think the Bible says everything's about 7,000 years old, so they're very close on
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah,
It's right there.
yeah.
And the Bible even speaks about God, like other gods and older gods as well in the Bible, which a lot of people do not know about. But yeah,
It
there
gets
are
really confusing. I'm not gonna lie because I looked at a
yeah.
couple and
You can go on forever because what is it, 29 accepted books? They don't even. The two most interesting books out of the Bible are the Enoch
yeah.
and Maccabees, because Maccabees,
I've never heard of the Maccabees one.
the book of Maccabees tells you exactly where the ark landed.
Okay.
Have you ever heard the story about the ark landing with the olive branch? He sends the bird out to go see
Yeah,
if there's
yeah,
people. It comes back with nothing the first day, second day, nothing, third day, it comes back with the olive branch. Olive branches are native to the Himalayas
Okay.
and very like high mountains. And they say that there's people who believe that he was in the highest point in the world, Mount Everest, was where they landed, the top. There's some people that honestly believe that.
Okay. Well,
And the book of
there's all
the
kinds of
book of
other
Mac,
issues too,
yeah,
man. If you look at all
yeah,
the tops of the highest mountains,
yeah.
they
What
all
about
got
it?
seashells on them.
Oh yeah, exactly. See, that goes right along with
It's
it.
the most common, which blows my the most common fossil on the planet is
Yeah.
seashells on top of the mountains.
Yep, exactly. And to go with the firmament thing, I just wanted to touch on it a little bit. What people don't get is that in with the story of the firmament eventually breaks right before the flood. And if the firmament breaks, outer space would be accessible to us. So a lot of people think like this is just another like little sidebar. Like that firmament may have been real at one point, but it's just as likely that it got destroyed during the flood because it wasn't just raining. He opened the gate for the waters above to come down. It also came from below, like in the inner earth. The
Yeah.
waters came up from as well. So if he
And
had
actually, they
broken,
found there's a ton of water in the earth too that they
yeah,
didn't realize existed.
tons of it, and a lot of salinity. Have you ever seen that video of the guy? He died like a week later. He went down in the Gulf of Mexico and he found this like lake at the bottom of the ocean, and it was pretty much 100% saline, and anything that swam into it would die immediately. But there are these microorganisms that have found a way to live in it. But as soon as like he put that out on National Geographic, the man died the next week.
No kidding.
I
Yeah,
don't
because
I don't know if
I
that
have heard of that. Yeah, where there's a
yeah,
lake
but it
inside
I
the ocean kind of thing.
yeah, that's completely insane. Just to even think about, but it was on video and everything.
No kidding. Huh.
Truly amazing.
Yeah, that's
I know I
crazy.
went off base with that, but yeah.
Nah, no, that's great, man. I love it. That's one of the reasons why I got you because there's so much topic
Yeah.
that it never ends, man.
Yeah, really.
And
If someone was bored, this is certainly something you can look into because it's just never ending. Really. I can't say if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it truly is never ending if you are interested in researching things of this sort.
well, you did have one guy that was really good at explaining all kinds of biblical stuff, and I saw it on your thing. It was a
Ken
teacher.
Hovind,
Yeah, that guy.
Ken
I
Hovind. Yeah,
really liked
he
him because he was
yeah.
very nothing. Okay, I
It
can't
was no
stand.
nonsense.
Yeah,
It was
well,
like no.
yes. So I nothing bothers me more than when someone makes things complicated, right?
Yeah, he makes it real simple for children.
Really
Yeah,
makes it simple. So for
Ch-
me personally, like when a politician makes like a 6,000 page law, they're either
yeah.
full of shit or they're doing it on purpose.
Oh
Because
yeah,
our
absolutely.
entire government was built on one piece of papyrus.
Yep, and
The
it's
whole
lasted all
government.
this
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. And so you're obviously doing it on purpose or you don't know what you're doing. And
Yep.
I've noticed that that's the way it works with a lot of things. Michael Jordan was so good at basketball or LeBron James, doesn't matter who, that
Yeah.
it makes you feel like you can do it.
Oh yeah.
Tiger Woods is so good at cracking the ball that you feel like you can do it.
Yep.
And if you know what you're talking about, you can make me feel like I understand.
Oh yeah.
And Ken
Absolutely.
Hovind there, he had me at
Yeah,
hello,
same.
man, because it was
Exactly the
simple. It
same.
wasn't complicated, and it was observable. The guy was
Yeah.
looking at it from a very basic level of
Objectively,
science. Yeah,
yeah.
objectively look, because science is really it's like 75% visual.
Yep. Observable.
What did they
Yeah.
do when they didn't like something that Albert Einstein said?
I tried to disprove it.
They tried to disprove it. So they're out there with telescopes trying to see if you could see a star behind the sun when there's an
Yeah.
eclipse, just to
Yeah.
prove if light bends. Because
Hmm.
they don't care about the math equation. They want to see
Yep.
it observable.
Oh, absolutely.
Because 75% of science is observable.
Hmm.
And I think that's
Exactly.
why we have so many problems
Yep.
with arguing over such trivial things is people don't want to unbelieve the lie.
Yep.
And
It's
so
too far ingrained.
so they're like, screw it, we'll just believe in aliens.
Yeah.
It
Nobody
just
wants to lie. Nobody wants to tell their kids that they've been lying to them their entire lives.
yeah, I try not to lie to my kids. I just
Yeah.
drive me nuts. And I'll be honest with you, I think truly, honestly, lying makes you just a weaker person.
Oh, absolutely.
It does.
Especially when people find that out, because then you're just untrustworthy
Yeah.
from forever on from that point.
Yeah. So I try my
So I
hardest.
just
I'm a human being, so I lie just like everybody
mistakes
do,
happen. Yeah,
and I make mistakes. But I try my very best to
to
tell
be
the
true. Yeah,
truth, or just
yeah,
you can feel it. It hits right inside. You're like, shit, I shouldn't have said that.
yeah. Exactly.
Or
That's how you know
sometimes you
you're a
just
good
don't know.
person.
Sometimes you don't know the answer, and you got to Google it.
Yep, exactly. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Um,
Totally.
so the New World Order, you touched on that a little bit halfway through.
Mhm.
What, like a year ago, maybe?
Yeah. Well, recently reposted it because of that movie Amsterdam coming out.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I've dabbled in it a little bit just to see what's up. But I wouldn't say I'm an expert on the subject, but I know some
No.
stuff.
Yeah, they've tried so many times, man. It's really
Yeah.
hard to get everybody to agree on something. I know
Yep.
we're gonna have to go back. We're gonna have to go back to the AI, and we're gonna have to go
Yeah.
back to the robots. I really think all this stuff is inevitable.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that theory where if the guy that invented the wheel didn't invent the wheel, someone else would have invented the wheel?
Yeah.
That
Yes, I've heard that.
that nuclear
Yeah.
bombs were gonna be here whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
It was
The
just inevitable.
inevitability
Yeah,
of
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so I'm wondering if like the Bible's not more true than everybody thinks, and the one world government and this hell on earth will come. And I'll be honest with you, psychology wise, I think hell's already here in us a little bit.
Oh yeah.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
I completely agree.
Where do
But
lies come from? Where
yep.
does evil, where does malevolence come from? It comes from us.
Yep. Within. Yeah.
And no one will argue evil. It's kind of like no one will argue pain.
Exactly.
Those are
It's
like,
irrefutable. It's
yeah, yeah.
irrefutable. Yeah.
So on that note, man, I don't know. Do you can you see a world where we have to work in the metaverse and there's a bunch of
I
robots cutting your grass? They're like, oh no, 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 go back in the
I
house, go back in the house.
it's
We got this.
it's almost it's almost stupid to think that it wouldn't happen. So like uh, as soon as you said it, I was like, we're definitely gonna be headed there at some point because it's just a lot of laziness in the world. People love for it to feel like they're powerful, and in that situation, you got your own little machine that's gonna do it for you. So you can just be as lazy as you want, and sit in front of the TV
Yeah.
as long as you want. And that's the problem with our country, at least at this point, is that the laziness and just the blind trust and just not trying to figure things out for themselves. And our vote just doesn't matter anymore. It never really did, I don't think, in the first place. But we're letting people make decisions for us that we shouldn't let. Like there's definitely good people in the government, but the people who are making the decisions, they're not. I don't think they have our best interest at heart.
Well, if you go back in history, just a short period of time there, what is it, 80 years, and you got Hitler, Stalin, and all this other stuff there, Mao and all. The way they were able to do it was you couldn't prop this whole thing up with a
Mm,
bunch of like really, really honest, good citizens at the bottom. They had
yeah.
to be all corrupt and willing to lie and be
Yep.
weak.
Exactly.
So when you look at like Soviet Russia, man, what's that book there? The Gulag Archipelago.
Mm,
They go into great detail. There's three families in a flat,
yeah.
and you want to get a little extra bread and a little extra steak. You go rat out on the other. You go rat out your neighbors,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
I think 30 million people died under that concept. But you had
Mm,
to have the bottom level. You had to have the
yeah.
bottom.
Without the bottom, it's gonna fall.
Yeah, yeah.
It'll all
It won't.
crumble.
Yeah,
It's all gonna crumble.
you
Yeah.
can't have a bad guy on top and have everybody say no. We're not going to do what you say and
Yeah.
have it work.
Eventually,
No.
they're gonna let go.
Yeah, yeah. So really, when hell comes, it's because everybody's lying at the bottom
Yeah.
and
Well, basically,
lazy and
it would have been an
selfish.
invitation to it.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah. Because
But,
there's always going to be a bad guy at the top once in a
mhm.
while. I
Yep.
mean, think about it. George Washington had his hands ripe for the
Oh,
picking, man. They
oh
were
yeah.
voluntarily giving it to him.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And thankfully he didn't take it, but everybody was ready, man. You get
Mhm.
tired. What happens when you look at World War II? We fought, and we got tired.
Mhm.
If we would have been smart, we would have wiped out Russia right when they were weak, man. They lost everybody. They didn't have
But
anybody
what?
left.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that we funded World War II. American bankers and the American like socialists, like socialites, like Henry Ford was making the tanks and the
Yeah,
trucks
yeah,
for the Nazi regime. Nobody knows about that. Prescott Bush was funding it, and England, the guy who was supposed to be king, I forget his name, but the Queen's brother was supposed to be king. He said no because he was an avid Nazi supporter, and he walked with them through their victory march in I forget what city it was.
France?
Yeah, I forget
When
what city it
the
was.
triumphal arch that the Romans made.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which there's a Arc of Triumph, the Arc de Triomphe, literally everywhere on Earth. Like there's one.
Well, I know this that the Romans.
There's one not even a stone's throw away from me.
Really?
Yeah, in New York. There's one right in New York.
I didn't know there was one in New York.
Yeah.
Oh,
Big ass arc.
I've been to New York City a bunch of times.
And it's called the Arc de Triomphe.
Oh, no shit. I didn't know that.
There used to be another one.
It's a big city, man. That's a big city. So
yeah,
I've been to a couple spots, and me and my cousin went to we did a couple wild stuff. But yeah, there's so much in New York. I haven't been there in a long time either, man. It's probably changed a lot.
Oh man, when's the last time you were there?
Oh, 15 years ago, probably. I've been in Texas 7 years now.
Yeah. So you were right outside of fucking. You just popped in after what 9/11 happened. A couple years.
That was the last time I went. Yeah.
It was definitely a sad time around then. It wasn't too much going on.
No.
But shit. What the fuck? Okay, sorry.
Well, Danny, I'm trying to think. Okay, the sun dog in Sweden. Mm-hmm. How do they get that wild look? How does that happen? What is their explanation for why it arches?
They say it's well, I don't know. The scientists say that it's light going through vapor or water crystals in the sky, causing it to create an expanded light.
Wouldn't it just make a rainbow?
Yeah, something like that. But I don't know exactly the actual scientific explanation. But a flat earther would say that it's the reflection of the sun bouncing off the dome that's behind it.
Yeah. It's too close. Yeah, it's too close to the dome. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, man. Because the Northern Lights make sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of flat earthers say that the Northern Lights is actually the magnetic. Like, have you ever heard of Aether? Like the ether that they talk about, that's why people were bigger back in the day, because there was so much. We were in an enclosed dome, so there was more oxygen for us to breathe. So
that teacher that we were talking about, he explained a bunch of this stuff. So I don't know if you listened to his whole thing.
I'm not sure entirely.
Okay. It was wild. Okay, so he goes, and this is his theory on how this all plays out. Right? He says the Earth, whether it's a dome or it's a ball. Irrelevant to him. That was irrelevant.
Oh, Hovind, you're talking
about. Yeah, Hovind, yeah. He said that the atmosphere was twice the size and twice the air pressure.
Yeah.
Allowing for the bugs to get so big. And dinosaurs, you got a nostril the size of like a rhinoceros, but a neck that's 60 feet long. You suck in and you would die immediately in the pressure we have now. But if you double the pressure, you get dinosaurs. You get gigantic bugs. Yeah. You get all this other stuff. People live 1,000 years old. There was all because if you look at the hyperbaric chambers and everything.
The King's List. Have you ever seen the King's Lists?
Yeah. Those are Mayans, though, right? Isn't that the Mayans?
Even the Egyptian. Everything before the flood. That they have the Catholic Church does have documents saying that, like, let's say Abraham. He lived 800 years. Yeah. And that was before. I'm not sure.
I don't think it's Abraham. I don't think Abraham.
Or it's one of it.
I think he lived
it's one of whoever became a king. I'm forgetting the exact names, but whoever were kings before the flood, they would live hundreds, if not 1,000 or so years. Yeah. And that was also the Sumerians as well. I might have gotten confused for a second, but yeah.
Maybe Sumerians. Maybe it's Sumerians. Yeah. And there's even some lost civilizations out there too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. They just can't figure out. Just there's statues out there, and it's a shame. Some of those Muslim guys, man, just blowing up statues and destroying heritage that we'll never get back, man.
Do you ever think of maybe that they're blowing that shit up because it's not the real heritage? It's possible.
I don't know.
I think completely possible. What they believe.
You should never get rid of. Yeah, you should never get rid of.
No, I know that's wrong.
Because we'll never know now. Now it's non-negotiable.
It's definitely wrong. Yeah. I didn't know you were talking about like the heritage, like the World Heritage Site type stuff. I thought you were just talking about like regular statues or something.
No, there's all kinds of stuff that there's some of the Persian stuff made it all the way to India.
Yeah.
and they just
Alexander the Great probably was.
yeah, they destroyed some
Yeah.
of that stuff.
Hmm.
I'm like, why? I mean, these huge statues in like granite, right? There was no need
Yep.
for it. No need to
Yeah.
destroy it.
Just hate, man.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
you were saying before, just hate, out of control hate. It's
Unfortunately,
still
man.
still rampant today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's again, that's another thing. I don't know if we can move past going anywhere else if we can't work with the heart itself here.
Yeah. And with our neighbors, like the people
Yeah,
we
man.
see every day.
We can't even figure that out.
We're very close to the point of no return. If we haven't made the turn already.
All right. Because I know you got things to do on your own life there. It's Saturday, so let's jump right back in. We were talking about shit. What were we talking about, man?
We just ended speaking on the Ethiopian, like the little cathedral in the air, but
Yeah.
we can move past that.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Okay, we'll jump into another thing that we were talking about the time skewed and everything. People don't realize solar eclipse is way harder to do than normal.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Now,
Yeah.
if I understand the math correctly, and this is just a real like the Earth and the Moon have to be in the same orbital plane as the Sun at a
Yeah.
perfect time in the exact moment for it to
Yeah.
be, and that's the easy one for that to
Mhm.
work. Now the solar one is mind-bogglingly more difficult.
Yeah,
The
it's
moon has to be 1/10 of the distance away from us that the sun is, and the sun has
yeah.
to be 10 times, but it also has to be 10 times smaller.
Yeah, it all seems so very convenient, doesn't it?
If it's off by just like a fraction.
It
Because if you
wouldn't.
think about this, the Earth is slowing down on spinning, right? So we have leap years, leap days, leap minutes, leap hours, all that nonsense. So that's not been happening forever, right? You can't go back 2 bazillion years. The Earth
Yeah.
would be spinning so fast, everybody would be flying off the second we got on. So
Yeah,
obviously
absolutely.
it's been happening for a finite amount of time. Well, the same
Hmm.
thing with the moon. The moon is falling away. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, the moon isn't 20 feet away from us 4 million years ago,
Yeah. They
right?
say that it by like an inch or so
But
every
again,
orbit.
if you go back thousands of years, you've got a moon that's only so many feet away. But if
Yeah,
you go
very.
back hundreds of millions of years and you keep that same progress, the moon's almost touching.
Well,
So
speaking.
obviously, it's not been it's a finite amount
Yeah.
of time that it's been falling away.
But yeah, there was a time where Aristotle speaks of this time where there was no moon at all in the sky. I
Wouldn't
don't know
that
if you
be
ever.
wild? Can you imagine if that thing is
Yeah.
really just an alien spaceship?
And this is an academically trusted like scholar, philosopher person, like astronomer, and he said himself that there was a time. I don't know if it was a period of 3,000 years or before the period of 3,000 years, but there was absolutely no moon in the sky at all at one point, they say. Now, a lot of people, when I had mentioned this on my page, they would say, "Oh, he probably just didn't see it." How could you not see the moon? Like, how could you not see the moon?
Well,
Like,
not only that, but it was bigger. A couple thousand years ago, it
yeah,
was like a quarter mile
close.
closer. Yeah.
If it's so much closer, how could he possibly not see it? So I don't see how they could make that the differentiation. Like maybe there was a period of time that was not there. Maybe the moon actually is a satellite that was put here and like changed our tides and everything because maybe that was how something affected us being giants.
Oh,
And
maybe.
like, yeah, you never know. Like
You
there's so
never
many
know.
factors changed our makeup, including the moon being so close because it has such a like how do we even know that the moon is truly what controls the tides and all that? That could all be something else
Who
because like
knows?
with birds and animals, how they migrate and navigate, they use a magnetic field that they can't see but they can feel. Like I think, or actually, maybe they can see it, but I know that they can feel this magnetic like field that
Yeah.
allows to know where they have to go, where
They
it's
don't
going
have
to
to
be.
learn it. They don't have to learn it from their parents. It's
So I
just
believe,
built. Yeah, it's just built into them. I
yeah.
mean,
So
mice. A rat is afraid of a cat, and you could
yeah,
get a rat that's been born 10 generations that's never seen a cat, still scared of a cat.
yeah, absolutely. It's just ingrained in their system.
Yeah.
But now, like speaking of like instinct, now like a lot of these pesticides that we're getting in our food, a lot of these frogs that live in the water ponds near them are starting to become hermaphrodites. Like male frogs can now have their
Reproduce.
have their own young and stuff
That's
like that.
wild, isn't that wild? Well, there's a lot more to those pesticides than you think. Any carcinogen, like even the plastic bottles, they're
Yeah,
saying is messing with our hormones, and
yeah,
that's why men don't have as much testosterone anymore. I
oh
actually did a
yeah,
podcast a month ago,
yeah.
almost completely on just this topic alone, man, because
I
it's a
can tell you,
wild phenomenon.
there's definitely a drop in testosterone because I can't grow a beard for shit.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Danny. I'm 44 years old and I'm pretty good shape. But when I
Yeah.
was in my 20s, I was doing roofing. There was no 44-year-old man I was ever scared of.
Oh yeah. No.
I was unstoppable at 22.
Oh yeah.
And I'll be
I'm
honest
sure.
with you, I look at most of the 22-year-olds around me, and I'm like, I could fucking whoop their ass. And
It's true.
I'm not even being rude or a joke, but
No,
I'm pretty sure I could pick them off the ground with one hand.
I think that the big thing with that is, and the lack of respect and the lack of just the lack of self for these new generations
Something.
is the fact they weren't disciplined like we were. Like even me, I think I might have been the last generation that was disciplined in a way that you would actually learn from your mistakes. Like getting a smack here and there, I don't think is very wrong at all if you deserve it. Like a little, just a little crack, like how people used to do spankings and stuff.
Yeah.
But like
Oh,
now,
I still smack my kids. I've got a 6-year-old. I whoop his ass.
at all.
Yeah.
If I mean, is just to teach them a lesson in a not in like you're like beating them like bad, but like
No,
just
no.
no, I
But
know that. I'm just saying like it's not a bad thing
no, it's
because
really
now
not. I'll be honest with you. It's a far better consequence than going to the bar and finding out the hard way that you could do 10 years.
absolutely, and they're
Learning it
now
from
they
your dad, I'm far more forgiving than the world is.
oh yeah,
Because I'm
absolutely,
going to love
like
you at the end of the day, no matter what.
yeah, and like just to go along with that, like we're the last my generation. I was born in '89. We're pretty much the last generation that went out to go play, and I could not be more happy with the fact that I was born before cell phones really hit a boom. Because these kids today are just not in tune with themselves and they're not in tune with the outside world. Like they would rather just sit on their computer all day or this and that, the other thing, instead of because when I was a kid, I used to go out and skateboard from dusk till dawn. I mean,
Yeah.
from dawn to dusk. And like, it was a great time to like just be like, and when the lights went down, like the street lights went down, that's when you knew to go home. And like, I think it was just a better quality of life when I was younger and probably even earlier for you because you're 10 years older than me. And I'm sure it was a great time when you were a kid to be alive. And
I was doing what you were saying when you were born.
yeah, exactly.
89, man, 89. I was 11 years old, man. I was on my bike, and you had to go look for your friends by
Yep.
finding out where the three bikes were
But you
in the
knew where they were.
backyard. Oh yeah,
Always
you
end
knew
up,
the three houses. You knew where to look.
there's only so many options. But
Yeah.
yeah, now kids, they have no discipline. The schools can't do anything. I mean, I understood that like only like Catholic schools were ever like really hitting kids and stuff. But like nowadays, there's just no way to show them what's wrong. But sending them to their room, what are they going to do in their room? They're going to go right on the computer, and they're more comfortable there anyway.
I was gonna say they were gonna do that anyways.
Yeah, and they go on their video games. But like the kids who are actually getting like a crack in the mouth every here and there for being disrespectful, we just know how to act in the world. And now I think that's a reflection of how like everything that's been going on with COVID and all this stuff and like the riots and all that and just people just getting out of control because they just don't know how to act.
Well,
you know?
here's the deal, man. I think you can't fix the world until you fix your house.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You
And
know what I
you're
mean?
like,
And this belief that you can fix everything and you're 20 years old.
no.
I don't mean to be rude or anything, but you know, if your bedroom ain't clean and your house ain't fixed up, the odds
Mm-hmm.
are you're not going to be able to fix anything outside of that realm of your responsibility.
The reflection of yourself. Really.
It's just, I think it's a virtue signaling easy way out to make yourself look benevolent.
Everyone everyone's so sensitive these days that you can't say nothing to nobody.
Yeah, and
And I,
they don't look you in the eyes, and I think that's another big issue too, man. Is people don't realize they're going to walk all over you if you're not putting some effort into
oh, that's a
to standing your ground.
yeah, it's a big thing. If you're a pushover, you're not going to make it in this world, like at all.
Well,
And
what happens is you end up becoming not cynical, you become like bitter because
yeah,
people can walk all over you, and you
yep,
think that being nice is going to make you look good,
yep,
but it really just makes you a pussy. And
yep.
if I know I can walk all over you,
It's
oh
going to
man,
happen
oh
every time.
if it's not just me, it's going to be a doormat for 20 other people. Especially
Yep.
once I show everybody that it's the easy walk.
Yeah, and then these people get put in those situations, and then they break, and
Well,
God knows
no,
what they're.
worse, they get some authority and now they take it out on all
Oh,
of us.
yeah.
Can you imagine
Like,
that kid that got picked on by 20, 30 people becoming the chief of police?
oh, God, I was just going to say the police.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man, that's not a good place to be. And
yeah, that
now no
gonna
one's
take.
got respect for you, and you are literally trying to pay back all the bullying you got as a kid when you should have
Yeah,
probably just got smacked in the face, knew that you could took the whooping, and manned up, looked the guy in the eye and said, I'm going to fight you now. And
Yeah,
because people don't realize this, bullying doesn't happen to the weak guy or the guy that sticks out. It happens to the guy that doesn't fight back.
exactly.
A bully will poke 4 or 5 times and find the person that doesn't fight back. And that's the
Exactly.
person he hyper focuses on. Not
And
because
that's
he's
what,
different than everybody else, because it's an easy target.
yep. He's not going to protect himself. He's
Yeah.
not.
So now you got a whole society of people that don't protect themselves, don't look you in the eye, and now they're going to have some authority.
Yeah. And then they blame
Oof.
the world for their problems.
Oh man, well yeah, we're in big trouble, man. It's definitely a trend that has to turn around. It definitely has to turn around quick.
Um,
Because here's the deal: the average guy is the guy that keeps the power running. The average
yep.
guy is the one that keeps the water running.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
I like running water. I like it hot if I could preferably have it that way.
Same
And
way over here.
yeah, man, I can you imagine if nobody wants to do their job anymore, or too lazy, or too arrogant, or too good, or I
Yep.
don't know. It does seem like we have a downward trend of some issues that are maybe they'll be addressed by the robots. Maybe the robots will do it all.
Yeah. By the time that they're around doing all our jobs.
Oh, that reminds me. That was the whole reason why I was so dead set on finishing this up here because we were missing a half hour, which is also my fault. I'll tell you later
Oh,
why. But have you seen the AI, the new AI that just came out with like a month ago that writes term papers for you?
I've heard about it. I
Yeah.
didn't. It's like an app, right?
Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is how it works, right? If I understand it right, it's a GTP. It's a General Language Processing Unit, where it literally you go, okay, write me a term paper on the Sermon on the Mount, but do it
Mm.
as if you are Shakespeare from the perspective of a Taoist. And in
Yep.
5 seconds, you got 20 term papers that are
It's like,
authentic and perfect. They're
yeah.
perfect. And it gets crazier. The fucking thing can grade itself.
Yeah.
So,
And the, to go along with that is now that there's these AI apps as well that you can create, like say, oh, Robert Scott Antarctic Exposition photos of artificial artifacts and like architecture,
and
and
recreate it.
it'll make all these fake pictures, and they're circulating like crazy right now,
Yeah.
like these fake photos, and people are believing them. Like I go on and I'll repost them, and I'll just try to explain to people that like these are not real photos, and it's obvious because like half the time the faces are blurred or this or that, but a lot of these AI photographs of like ancient fucking architecture is just completely not real. And I try to tell people, and they're so dense, some of them, I don't mean to call people stupid, but they won't even read the caption where it says, this is fake, please stop sharing this, or like something like that. And they'll just reshare it saying like, wow, this is amazing, without even looking into what I even said about it. So people just blindly just go along with it. But yeah, like I think that those AI apps are eventually they're gonna get caught up with, just like anything else. Because remember how they had the I don't know if it was called what it was called. It was like cribs, like crib sheets online where you could be able to figure out how to make a crib sheet to write on your hand and whatnot.
Yeah.
But like they eventually caught up with that as well. But these AI things, I don't think it's going to last very long. I think that they're going to decipher what was made from a computer and what wasn't.
There'll
Just
always
like
be some type of signature. I understand what you're saying.
yeah,
But the point that it corrects itself and can actually like grade itself
yeah,
and the
yeah.
speed in which it can make these 5-page, 10-page essays.
I wish I
Yeah,
when
right.
I
Well, here's the thing. Number one, it's going to affect college a lot because now it's just multiple choice because
yeah,
essays don't count. How is a professor going to look at 60 papers per class per day on? He won't have the time to
yeah,
psychoanalyze. Does this sound authentically from a human or does it sound like it's
yeah.
from a robot? He won't
He's
have
just
the
gonna
time.
yeah, exactly. The workload on professors and teachers just in general these
But
days is just
I think AI is going to have a more profound effect than the cell phone did because it's got ramifications we didn't see. Right, first the cell phone was like, oh man, I can call anybody anytime. Then oh man, I can get on the internet. But all of a sudden, Instagram and Tinder come out of nowhere and they
yeah,
change a whole genre of our lifestyle tremendously more than we ever would have anticipated a year before the phone existed. So
yeah,
with the AI, I think there's going to be some kind of spot where it's going to cut off and say, we change all of this so dramatically that there's no coming back ever again.
yeah,
And one of the things is once it can test itself in the real world and actually psychoanalyze what it's writing to the real world,
yeah. Like it's
it'll have independent thought.
oh, absolutely. When they become fully sentient, we're in trouble. Like you've seen the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, right?
Yeah. That was made around the day I was born. I think it was 78. It was like the year I was born.
Like they're thinking the whole time, like, oh, we're going to discover this thing, this monolith that they found on the moon, and then they're like, oh, there's one on Venus as well. But the whole time they're thinking about human exploration, but they have the supercomputer that they're working with called HAL, and they're not configuring that maybe the future of humans is an artificial version of us. And like at the end of the movie, you realize that the computer turned against them.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going really fast into that direction now. That especially putting guns in the hand of these robots and such. Like in California, they're
crazy.
like I said, like they're gonna have these robot police officers. Like, how do you differentiate between what's right and what's wrong in these situations? But yeah, what you were saying, the AI schooling is these kids are gonna get zero education. So when they go into the real world, they're not gonna be able to explain any of the stuff that they were claiming that they know, like at all.
With no discipline, without being able to look you in the eye, they're going to have a list of things that are going to make them weak in the moment. Because I'm telling you right now, when you and I are competing for the same $30 an hour job, what are you willing to do for that $30?
Yeah, it really depends.
You got a huge advantage on a guy that doesn't want to look you in the eyes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to be sociable, and if you're sitting in front of a computer or letting a computer dictate everything in your life, you're gonna have a hard time in the real world that we live in today.
There's no way around it. So the basic premise for me is you either do it the hard way or you do it the hard way. Just pick your poison. You're going to do it one way. So either you take the ass whooping from your dad who loves you and is going to be way more forgiving, or you're going to learn it in the workplace where I'm going to be honest with you. If you're doing like manual labor, I did construction and stuff. You do manual labor, they'll eat you up and spit you out and they won't let you stay.
Oh no, yeah.
If you can't take a joke, if you can't fight back a little bit, if you don't have a little thick skin, if you're going to be on your phone all the time, those 30, 40-year-old dudes are going to eat you up and spit you out so quick.
Yeah. I remember firsthand, I was never really a crazy phone person, but if you can't take, like, even when I work with my father is a mechanic, and I like don't do things a certain way, like he'll take a little shot at me every once in a while. It's just,
but that's healthy for you, though. He's sharpening you. Yeah. And your dad's doing you a huge favor. And trust me, he's being way kinder than the next guy at the next mechanic will ever be.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. So, we're in for a treat, man. I can't wait to see, because I'm looking at my kids. Thank God most of them are girls. Because girls can get I don't mean to be rude, but they live in a different plane than we do. Yeah. The expectation for them is a whole nother animal.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Yeah.
So
the woman's world is is a lot easier in some aspects than the man's world when it comes to the workforce. Even though, like, obviously women have they get lower pay grade, but it's just not the same. Like there's more expected from a man than there is a woman. And I know that what you're trying.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm not trying to dog them in any capacity.
Oh, no.
Because we're not expected to do what they do.
Yeah.
And I don't think I could. I don't think I have it in me, bro. I could.
No.
The species would end with me right here, right now.
Yep. Right there. I'm right there with you.
Danny, I appreciate you, man. I could talk for hours, but I don't have the time. I want to publish this tonight if I can.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, man. You want to plug away? You want to plug anything? You go for it, man.
Yeah, my name's Danny. I'm from Question Antiquity. You can find all my sites on any social media platform. Just search Question Antiquity, and there I am. You can't get any much better than that. And thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Absolutely. And I apologize if there was any time problems on my end.
Yeah, there was a couple, and there was a couple on my end. The worst case scenario happened. I never recorded the first half of our video the first time we did it.
Oh yeah,
that's the whole reason. That's the whole reason why we're doing it again.
Yeah, no worries.
I was so frustrated. I looked at it, my jaw dropped, and I said, "Motherfucker!" No. I was like, "No, this was literally just a friendly, fun conversation for no reason."
Yep.
I was like, I could have done this any other. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much, Danny.
No worries.
All right.
No worries. Definitely nice meeting you.
Yes, nice to meet you too, man. You have a good year.
You too.
All right.
Weather is good, sun is shining, don't get my vibe.